All right. Yabba dabba do this. Do you want to do this? I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm back for another live stream post Christmas. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and hopefully a soon to be Happy New Year. So the new year is nearly upon us, 2026. So I thought I would get in a little stream here and we would talk about phantom Somali daycare centers in Minnesota. Today we'll talk about some political stuff. I had people talking to me back and forth about all the fraud and waste and abuse in Minnesota that actually is much bigger than that. So we'll talk about that. And I was like, you know what? It's time to talk about this sort of stuff, especially since it's important to the future of the nation and our culture. So today is going to be a little bit more political in nature. I want to talk about the Somali stuff. I want to talk about immigration. I want to talk about corruption on a grand scale. Then maybe I'll talk about a little financial stuff. We could do that. Maybe talk about a little soul findery stuff. Go through my feed. Mr. Grahovac, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Sounds like you could hear me all right, so that's good. So, yeah, we're just going to run down the list. I got some notes here that I just made a few moments ago. I usually have my backer boards. I like to use those to write my notes. Maybe you have a lovely 26. You too. I will be on X here and there. I'll be, hopefully, God willing, health holds up and everything. I'll be doing live streams here and there and maybe on Instagram every once in a while. So yeah, all right. Where do we start with this? All right. If the world is against truth, then I'm against the world. That's how I feel a lot these days. So, this one might be a little spicy, but I was telling someone yesterday, I got to be really careful about what I say, because I'm pretty sure that if I just gave you my complete uncensored thoughts on a lot of things, might get a little visit from some men with some sunglasses on. I don't know. But so I got to say what I want to say, but I don't want to be too on the nose about it. But we're in a dire situation here, the nation. I think most people who tune into this stream and my feed know how I feel about this sort of stuff. I've said it quite a few times over the years. But all right, so we got this guy. He's an independent journalist. This was it Nick Searcy? Is that his name? Where is it? I want to make sure I get his name right. Nick Shirley. I don't know why I thought it was Searcy. Shirley. So this guy is like some sort of independent journalist, and he's down in I shouldn't say down. He's up in Minnesota. And they got all these daycares all over the place, and they're run generally by a bunch of Somalis. But the thing is, when you go there, there's no children there. And then there's like medical centers and stuff like that. And so when you ask about, like, hey, I'd like to enroll my little kid in this daycare center. His name's Joey or whatever. They get all like shaken up. They don't even know what to do. There's no one there. There might be like one person behind the office, but because all of this is public records, if you know what to look for, this is the kind of stuff that, like, when I worked for the Washington Times, like, I was really into all this stuff and all the different places you can go to get all this information if you want to do it. But it is out there. If you want to find it, a lot of stuff, you could connect the dots and you can figure this stuff out if you want to, if you are so inclined, if you are Nick Shirley here or people like him. So anyway, you go to these places. There's no children anywhere. They got signs that says, instead of Learning Center, it's misspelled. It's Learning Center. In one instance, the number that they had went directly to the governor's office. The dude who blames white people for everything, the guy, Tim Walz, he was going to be Kamala Harris's running mate. He literally was. And so then you start asking for the medical services and insurance. You're like, all right, I want to see what, I can do. That they have no answers, that like 99% of them, or if they do, they're just like trying to get you out of there. Like fill out some paperwork that they're just going to give you the runaround or whatever. So he kept going to all these places. There's like a 45-minute documentary or whatever. It's out there. There's clips all over the place on X. And all of these people are stunned that this guy is coming in. He's actually asking questions because he's got the data. The show is like, hey, you guys are making like $130 million, blah, blah, blah. And then when you add up all the fraud that has been like people are guilty of in Minnesota, they've added it up and it's something like $9 billion since 2020. Again, I'm not exactly right on all of the numbers, but essentially it's billions and billions of dollars over the course of years in a very short amount of time that all traces back to Minnesota. And a lot of it with these fake medical services, these fake daycares, and other things. So that is the thing, is that the fraud, the level of fraud going on that is confirmed, objectively confirmed, it is a fact, you cannot deny it, is on such a monstrous, insane, gargantuan level that your average person, they cannot even wrap their mind around it. You get like $1 billion in and of itself is just such a huge number that most people cannot fathom exactly like how big it is and exactly how upset you should be that American taxpayer dollars are being stolen by people, not just in Minnesota, but all over the place. So the rot runs deep. Mr. Groveback, fake daycare centers. Now I've heard everything. Yeah, so I will try and play like some of these clips in my feed or whatever. But again, go to Doge, Elon Musk, Nick Shirley has his own page or whatever. You can find all this sort of stuff. And I mean, I could even click through some of it or whatever, where we can show him kind of coming up to these people and their reactions to it. It's all over the place. All right. So now it actually blows up, and then you have the governor and you have all these politicians saying like, actually, there's a lot of fraud out there, and we actually really should be looking at white people. White people are actually the problem. So this is obviously a distraction. They don't want you to look into it. And that was the other thing that I was saying, is that when Nick here was going around, one of the numbers actually went back to Tim Walz's his offices, which has now been disconnected and like rerouted or whatever. But it was revealed that the Sweet Angel Childcare phone number for one of these places, literally, if you actually called it before all of this broke, it actually would go to the governor's office. So it's all sort of tied together. But here's the thing. This is what I really wanted to kind of talk about, is that fraud on this level is not an accident. You do not get billions of dollars of fraud in a single state without high-ranking politicians, dishonest, evil people actually knowing about it. So if you go back to the 2024 election, you'll see people like Tim Walz bragging about how much he has done for daycare in Minnesota. But we now know that the vast majority of it is all fraudulent and essentially is a money laundering operation. So this is what happens. And this also happens on an international scale. If you want to talk about, we talked about like the various wars and all of that sort of stuff. So what happens is the Democrat Party overall, although both parties are guilty of this, which I'll get into that as well. Neostar, oh yeah, I've been hearing about that a lot lately. Is you bring in, you know that you cannot win elections just by doing it the honest way, because your ideas are screwy and they go against the Declaration of Independence, the principles in the Declaration of Independence, and those principles codified into law within the U.S. Constitution. So now they have an issue. They want to be in power. They only care about power. That is what they are obsessed about. Student of God, thanks for tuning in, says Hail Chat. So what do? They start on a large scale importing people from all around the world. And Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, various parts of Asia, all sorts of places in South America, blah, 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 blah. With, it's like implicit and actually explicit on other sorts of levels. The thing is like, okay, you're going to come here, then we are going to find ways to funnel money to you. We are going to allow you to vote in our elections, and the money hose will continue to run into your mouth as long as you continue to vote for us. So it's something like the daycare fraud, when Tim Walz is like telling the nation during the debates how much he's done for daycare centers and medical centers in Minnesota, which he knows are all fraudulent. It's a wink, nod, nod. Hey, look what I've done for you. The person on the other end who's committing the fraud knows this guy is sending me money and nothing's going to happen to me because the political leaders all know. Wink, wink, nod, nod. All right, so it's like the Scarface movie. That's exactly what it is. So back then, it's like you have the cocaine guys, you have the crack dealers or whatever, Antonio Montana or whatever. So now it's basically the leaders of the Democratic Party, and they are in cahoots with, whether it's the Somalis or whether it's any other various groups that are coming in, they're little that they protect in various ways. Venezuelan gang members. You can just keep going down the list. But again, this is hundreds of millions into the billions of dollars probably per year. People can do all the math, but that was the setup. So these people, they benefit because they become wealthy through all the fraud, but then a portion of that, they then funnel back into the Democratic Party for their elections. So it's this like symbiosis sort of thing. It's this like endless loop of corruption and evil and deceit and dishonesty where everybody knows what the other guy is doing. But it's done in a way where it would be very hard to hold the highest ranking people accountable unless you really had like hard-nosed people that like digging into it and willing to like go after the high ranking people that know it. But that's the thing, is they always want plausible deniability. Student of God, so I can send a video that shows local news about this in 2025. The parents of the kids are in on it. They pay the parents to enlist and not show up. Yeah, exactly. So that is what happens as well. They're all in on it. They all know the deal. And it's kind of like in certain, you know, that like they have these town hall events. There's, you know, political meetings that are like sort of like off the grid where people are not like by their cell phones or whatever. And you don't need to say no, like for the most part, most people are not going to just be like, hey, I got a really idea on how to like, you know, defraud the American taxpayer. And then they're like spell it out like some sort of like villain in a movie or something like that. They're not going to do that. They're going to talk in like euphemisms, and they're going to be like, you know, daycare centers, you know, they're so valuable to the local population, and they just so happen to be very lucrative. Even if nobody shows up, that, you know, but we still need daycare centers because blah 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 or whatever. So everybody sort of like knows the deal. And then once you get away with it and you see, oh, nobody's looking into this, wait, the federal dollars are coming in, but the state once the federal dollars come into the state has this tacit agreement, especially Minnesota. Minnesota is like the one place when Ronald Reagan won 49 out of 50 states. Like Minnesota, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in 1984 was like the one state that did not vote for Ronald Reagan. And then obviously the District of Columbia, I believe, as well. They like, just DC is all liberal as well. So it's just like, okay, we're going to get the federal dollars. The same thing goes for California as well. Super majority of Democrats or whatever. So, if it's this bad in Minnesota, now you just got to go. Now you start digging into California and Los Angeles, blah, 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 blah. Same thing. You can go to New York State. And if you started looking into that, you would probably find massive, massive amounts of stolen federal dollars. Because they know, they're like, okay, so this is their agreement. The money's going to come here from Uncle Sam. And now the great state of Minnesota, what is it? The land of 1,000 lakes. Is that Minnesota? I'm not even 100% sure of that. But so it gets there, and then you're going to do our bidding for us. And you can have your house, and you can send money back to Somalia or whatever it is. And we're not going to question where it goes. And we know that nobody's going to look into this. But and they definitely weren't going to look into it if Tim Walz became the vice president of the United States and Kamala Harris became the president. That was the plan. It's like you have these corrupt people. They know what's going on, but they have aspirations to actually be in control of everything. So then it's like, oh, so we're doing this on the state level. Kamala Harris, also California. So you have corrupt people. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Is you have all these networks of dishonest, corrupt people. And again, they don't need to say they know. It's almost like evil works like telepathically. And once you have the right ideology, and once you basically do away with all principles, then you know what the other guy is thinking without even saying it. All you need is a little eye contact. You look in the other person's eyes, and they'll tell you everything without saying a single word. A little nonverbal body language, language will tell you all sorts of things. I can just look at you and be like, if I can raise my eyebrow a certain way, I could nod my head a little way. I could move my hands. I could use hand gestures or whatever. And you could know exactly what I'm thinking on any sort of subject. And if we're both corrupt and we're both evil, wink, wink, again, it will go. So that was their plan. And you want to know why they tried to take out Donald Trump multiple times? It's because they were terrified that this guy was going to start digging into it. And that's exactly what he did when he brought Elon Musk in with Doge. But as we know with Doge, then everybody start coming after Elon, and they were going insane. So it's like Trump was elected. He brought in Elon. Elon brought his team. They started finding all of this fraud across. They got the money trail. They got all sorts of, you could, once you have access to the data, and that's the other thing, is all these agencies and stuff like that, they didn't realize that these smart young kids, the big balls guy or whatever, they were going to come in and they would be able to figure out ways to glean all of this information on a massive scale and then break it down in ways like they can separate it into what they need to be able to put the puzzle pieces together. So they come in, they start finding all the fraud, and they're like, oh, crap. Oh, shiza. Like, this is not good. Ohio, student of God, Ohio is now being looked into. Exactly. They're going to find these bellwether states. So that's the other thing they did. So the Democrats basically, on a global scale, invited the entire world to come in. That's what I was going to say. You can't win on the issues. But then you're like, what happens if we become the party of anti-American thought or something along that line? We can bring in people that basically have beefs with America, that don't like America, and we could become the party of not America. But while there's a veneer of being patriotic and welcoming and you care for immigrants and all this sort of stuff, but it's like you're opening the door to all these people that do not hold your principles, and you understand on a certain level, all right, we're going to ship these people to all the bellwether states. We're going to ship them to Ohio. We're going to put them in Michigan. Then we're going to weaken the hardcore red states. Now we're going to send in all these people from like Pakistan and Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia and all these places. We're going to send them into like parts of Texas, and they're going to like set up shop in Texas. And so you just keep going and going and going. And then it's like the Democrats on a certain level are like, okay, we understand that this is going to erode the culture, and essentially there will be rubble ultimately in its place. But if we entrench ourselves in the power positions, we will essentially rule over the rubble of what was once the United States of America. And we're okay with that because we don't have any principles or whatever. But again, they smile to the camera. They will tell you they care, that it's like they are all about America and they're patriots and this and that. But then you have guys like Tim Walz who goes to the Nick Shirley guy and he says, well, all of this is really just rooted in white supremacy, and this guy is a racist or whatever. And so that's what they do. It's like, no, I am the real American because I am welcoming of diversity. And so they try and demonize you. They try and gaslight the people that are actually the ones standing up for American principles. I saw one of the videos with the Somali guys. There was a dude, the guy who was with Nick is like this old guy. And the Somalis are like, you need to get out of here and leave and blah, 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 blah. And the old guy was like, I literally grew up in Minneapolis. This is where I grew up. You're the guy who just moved here a couple of years ago, set up shop, and now you are defrauding me, the American taxpayer, of millions of dollars with fake daycare centers while framing me as the bad guy. And you and all of your friends and all these people coming in are very open about the point that you don't like the United States of America. You don't like what we stand for. You don't stand for the Declaration of Independence. You don't stand for the U.S. Constitution. You don't stand for any of that. What you want to do is you want to bring Somalia into Minnesota, and you want to create little Somalia. And if we look at like the Omar, the politicians, the Somali politicians as well, they will openly say the exact same thing. They are about Somalia first, and that's what they care about. They do not actually care about the United States. And if you question them, you are the bad guy. You are racist. You have a problem. You are somehow anti-American. Do you see what's going on? So what these people want to do is they want to destroy the culture from within, and they want to be the rulers over what is left afterwards. And again, anyone that's followed me for any length of time over the years, back when I worked for the Heritage Foundation, when I worked for the Washington Times, these are all the types of stories that I worked on. These are the issues that I worked on back in the day. When I was at Heritage, I was part of the Young Leaders program because I was trying to work with young people and impress upon them what exactly was going on. And then when I was at the Washington Times, for like roughly a decade, the stories that I tried to talk about were putting the puzzle pieces together, putting the dots there for everyone, so anyone who wanted to connect the dots can see what was going on. And then I left, obviously, the Washington Times. Now I'm obviously doing Soul Finder, and I'm at Iconic Comics. But my values are still the same. I still love the United States. I love my country, and I don't want to see people destroy it from within. Student of God says, Democrats say it's about race, but it's actually culture. Muslim culture is not compatible. Okay, so you're a little bit ahead of me there, but we're on the same page. So I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was saying this is a really hard conversation to have, but here's the deal. Is at some point in time, we must address the elephant in the room. It's sad that it's actually an elephant in the room. And the elephant is the importance of Christianity in terms of being Christian thought, Christian morality being in the bricks of the foundation of the United States of America. And I know people will be like, well, some of the founding fathers were just deists, and Thomas Jefferson, he had the Bible, but then he like would cut out like certain parts of supernatural things, but he just agreed about like the wisdom of Christ and blah 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 blah. At the end of the day, the founding fathers were overwhelmingly Christian, or so influenced by Christian thought that in essence, the United States at its founding was like Christian morality. And you can go into our original documents in terms of being like one nation under God, etc., etc., etc. And the references to God again and again and again, in nature and nature's law and natural law. So they were all Christians. So now, at some point in time, you have to ask, if you have a political party, if you have people that are importing those who believe that it is right and just to deceive and hurt and mislead Christians, then that is not compatible with the principles and ideals of the United States. You have people coming from Somalia, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Iran, all these people that believe, there's even words for this in their own language about the deception of those who are not Islamic, who are not Muslim. It's permissible for you to lie to those people to get an advantage over them. So again, you're importing people who actually hate you and believe they're doing a good thing if they lie to you and ultimately hurt you. So that's why you have hundreds of daycare centers and medical centers across various states of people that are stealing, literally in the aggregate, billions upon billions of dollars, because they don't even see you as a human being. They see you essentially as a dog. And there's nothing wrong with lying and hurting you if the end result is that they benefit and they become stronger as their own like subpopulation within the country that is, again, hostile towards it. So again, you have to ask yourself about the politicians that are bringing these people in on a large scale and putting them in areas with people that actually do believe in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, etc., etc., etc. Now, you have to ask yourself, why are none of these people being held accountable? The politicians, the Tim Walzes and all the Omars out there, and all these people. Why is the Republican Party so averse to actually holding these people accountable? Well, one, they have their own various frauds and grifts and things going on. And if you look into Doge and you look into why Elon Musk was personally attacked and threatened, and we know that there's threats on his life, and etc. He's talked about how he's nervous about even going to public events because if he makes one wrong move, it's over for him because people want to take him out. They're not very happy that he bought then Twitter, now X, and he allows people like us to talk about these issues. Anyway, if you're wondering why nobody does anything, it's because the rot is so deep. And again, networks of evil people will wink and nod at each other. So again, the Republicans have their own level of corruption. You wonder why on so many issues they're slow rolling Donald Trump's agenda, and they're like dragging their feet and they can't do anything and they're not coming up with it. Like there's no law. The Republicans control the House and the Senate. And then you can say like, well, they don't have like super majorities, yada, yada, yada. Well, they can still get plenty things done that they're not. They clearly went out of their way to drag their feet on various issues, especially in terms of election integrity, etc. Anyway, so Okay, what happens when across the board in institutions, in various media outlets, in academia, in Congress, you just have rot gut everywhere? Well, again, we could go back to the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Okay, so let's translate that into 2025 English. Although this audience, I'm sure that they understand what is being said, but for someone who just runs across and doesn't understand what was being said right there. Mr. RPX, thanks for tuning in. Vicky, thanks for tuning in. Okay, it's saying that most people, if they know that there's a fraud daycare center down the block, there's a daycare center, but they never hear. So where I live, there's actually a daycare center nearby. And actually, I do think there is something fraudulent going on there because they've been doing renovations on that thing for, it seems like, years. And it's a really small building and it never gets done. It's just like you randomly have guys out there working all the time and it's almost like they're just hitting hammers and not really doing anything, or they're moving at a snail's pace because however they're getting paid, they're just getting paid by like, okay, well, however long it takes, that's we're paying you by the hour or the day or whatever it is. So instead of doing the job, which in my mind probably could have been done in a couple weeks, it's taking a year, 2 years, 2.5 years. I don't even know. So there's something shady going on there. But regardless, there's another part of it where you actually do hear children on a daily basis and they're screaming bloody murder. And they're just like, you know, kids are playing, you know, kids are fighting, you know, that there's random adults there that are trying to get them under control or whatever. But it's not fraud. Anyway, if there was something shady, most people would be like, you know what? Somebody out there is going to do the right thing. They're going to, you know, the state is supposed to check on these people. They'll check on it. I don't want to cause waves. I don't want to cause problems. The Minnesota Vikings are playing on Sunday and I want to watch the Vikings and they're playing the blah, blah, blahs and they're playing the Raiders or something, you know, whatever they're playing. Who knows? You know, somebody is like, all right, well, you know, the Rams are playing this weekend and they're playing the Jaguars or whoever it is. I don't know the divisions anymore. I don't really watch football that much anymore. I do keep tabs on the Steelers just because my dad's always been a Steelers guy. And I do like old quarterbacks. I like seeing how they're doing. So I like watching the Colts and Old Man Rivers. And I do like watching Aaron Rodgers just because, again, I'm an old guy. So I like to see how the old guys are doing. They're like 44 years old or 41 or whatever. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is 41. Rivers is 44, I think. You know, I'm going on 47. So there's a part of you, your heart, that's just like you want them to do well because they're old like you. Anyway, most people, they will just put up with the bull crap that's going on around them because they don't want to take it to the 1776 level. Again, prudence, indeed, will show that you don't want to go to 1776 levels of rage without just cause. But at some point in time, you're there. And again, going back to what I was saying at the start of this particular stream, most people cannot wrap their heads around how large, how bad the fraud actually is. When it's reaching into the billions and billions and billions of dollars, that is insane. That is something where, yes, if it was 1776 and there was the equivalent of billions of dollars being stolen by people, those people at a minimum would be hauled out of their building. They would be put in public stocks and people would be throwing tomatoes and eggs and cucumbers and corn cobs and all sorts of things at those people over and over and over again. Vicky says pure sunlight is the only answer. Vicky says nothing gets fixed because both sides benefit from the corrupt substrate. Exactly. So again, on multiple levels. The Republicans are very good at giving lip service to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. They will often talk about it, and they'll get like really mad. Like if you go online, if you go to X right now, you see all the Republicans and they're jumping on this and be like, "This is ridiculous." Oh, okay. Well, you knew about the massive levels of fraud when Doge was created and it found all of it. And you have again slow rolled it, and you haven't tried to put in place legislation. You haven't tried to codify anything into law that would be able to root all of this out. And then you could go to the Department of Justice and you could look at what they're doing. And what they always do is go after the small fries. They go the small fries, the small potatoes. That's what they go after. They don't go after the Tim Walzes. Why? Because they know they don't want to cross that Rubicon, because they know that they have their own friends. Some of them are corrupt, just as corrupt indeed, is that when they lose power, then the Democrats will come for them. But the Democrats come for them anyway. That's like the weird thing, is they tried to ruin everybody. Like in the first Trump administration, when the Democrats got power again, they used lawfare to try and destroy the lives of everybody that was remotely close to Trump. And they, quote, trumped up charges against various people, pun intended. And they tried to like basically just bankrupt them or make sure that they were thrown in prison for the rest of their lives. And so that's what they did. And they'll do that anyway. But again, so it's like you scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's what all the corrupt people do. And I've said before, Donald Trump is not a perfect man by any means, but he clearly loves the United States of America and he understands what's going on, but he's literally only one guy. There's only so much he can do within our system of government. He isn't a dictator, contrary to what other people say about him, and he is constrained on certain levels about what he can do. And the Democrats are fighting him every step of the way. That's why you have all these activist judges that keep throwing down roadblocks. And so much of what happens keeps going to higher courts, and many times the Supreme Court, which, thank God, multiple times has said, like, these are bogus. Like, the president of the United States, whether he's Republican or a Democrat, needs to have X number of powers or authority, especially over the executive branch. And these judges are just being like, no, he can't do it. But it boils down to Trump can't do it because we don't like Trump. They're not even thinking long term. So whatever. Anyway, so corruption, wide scale, at some point in time, you just have to think about it. Where is it again? When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such a government. So that is another elephant in the room that, Matt, thanks for tuning in, that nobody wants to talk about. That at some point in time, when you see that all the intelligence agencies, that both political parties, that all of the major institutions, that the media, that the academia, it's rotten to the core, something needs to be done. And thankfully, people like this Nick Shirley guy are out there, and they're shining a spotlight onto what is going on. And then what you see is you have Politico, you have MSNBC, you have all these other news outlets that are saying like, oh, this is fake, or we don't know. This is very dangerous for your random American citizen to be showing up and asking questions. Oh, how dare Nick Shirley go to a place that promises daycare and asks how he can enroll his son in the daycare with no children there. What is he doing? Politico should be doing that, but Politico doesn't do that. And actually, if you go back in time and you look into what Doge found, and you found all those NGOs and all stuff like that were donating, funneling money to places like Politico and all of these others, because they knew that if the money was going to them from these organizations that were ideologically in alignment with them, that would prop them up. So again, the media is corrupted. They're all ideologues. You cannot get the truth from the quote unquote mainstream media. And so many things over the years where people said, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're a conspiracy theorist. It turns out that the conspiracy was actually real. It turns out that, there are actually myocarditis problems with people that get the vaccine. It turns out that the Wuhan lab was linked to the Wuhan virus and COVID and the development of said virus. It turns out that people actually did want to take out Donald Trump multiple times and were willing to go to great lengths to do so. It turns out that there really was an island where a bunch of billionaires and politicians all got together and they abused children, which is really funny because we have all the evidence that they were doing that. But again, nobody except the Maxwell was remotely held to account. So we know that all these people were going to an island that was trafficking children. And we know that the guy that was running it had all sorts of surveillance all over the island, but yet we don't have any video. We don't have any prosecutions. We just have random dumps of redacted files and stuff like that. In which, again, what you do have shows that the most powerful people in the world were going to this place and were buddy and financially entwined with these people, Epstein and all of his other associates. Again, you can just keep going down the rabbit hole. It's very, very deep. So let's see. I think we talked about like almost everything on the Somali issue that I wanted to talk about. So quick break, real quick. I just want to thank everybody that has supported Soul Finder over 2025 and actually going back to the very beginning. But if you did not know, we have Seraphim plushies, the Japanese translation of Soul Finder Demons Match, which I brought to Japan, to Tokyo, with the show with Tim and Mark, which was quite excellent. That is now also on the Iconic website. The rosaries are doing well. Jack Posobiec actually tweeted out the link a few days ago, and every single time he tweets out a link to the rosaries sell. There was something like 30,000 plus people that viewed that particular tweet. And Iconic always lets me know that a certain percentage of those 30,000 people that saw that were indeed buying rosaries. And I know some of them want to because I know a number of people were bookmarking the tweet as well. So thank you, everyone. The Cairo mugs are out there. Hopefully I pronounced that right. My brain refuses to remember the correct pronunciation of it. But so, yeah. So if you haven't purchased any of those and it looks like it's up your alley and you want an angel looking over you before you go to bed at night, consider our little Seraphim plushie, who will be featured ultimately in Soul Finder Volume 6. Not this particular guy, but assuming that Matt Weldon does Volume 6, which all indicators are that Matt is still ready to go on Soul Finder Volume 6 once 5 is done, you will see a Matt Weldon version of the Seraphim. All right, so unless there's any other Somali stuff, I think I basically covered that. And let's see, we talked about Soul Finder. And yeah, I guess related to that, then we could just go on to questions people have asked me about Soul Finder as of late and some of the other stuff that has gone on. So I actually had a reader, not Dennis here, but since he's got Soul Finder, he's got Father Redder on there. We'll just bring up Soul Finder. So I had a reader recently ask me, and he was like, "Hey Doug, just been watching, like," I'm paraphrasing here. So if the guy is actually watching, again, not Dennis, if the reader is actually watching, paraphrase is like, "Hey, did so-and-so person and so-and-so person ever apologize to you because time has actually vindicated you on a number of issues?" And my answer was no. So let me tell you what happens with me, and it has happened multiple times over the course of 2025. I've actually had people DM me and say, "Hey, Doug," again, this is a sort, not verbatim, it's pretty close, but paraphrase. Hey, Doug, you blocked my friend. Do you mind unblocking my friend? Because my friend doesn't understand why you would block him. And I usually ignore those sorts of things. But the short answer is no. Your friend knows exactly why I blocked him. And if he doesn't know, he should know. And he should really think a lot harder about it. So, what happens in indie comics is you have people that actively try to harm your reputation publicly and privately. And there is a trail of social media trail of evidence, often deleted, of these people trying to tear your reputation down or tear the reputation down of Tim and Mark and Iconic Comics. And they try and delete it. They try and scrubberoo or whatever. And then what they do is they pretend as if they didn't do the thing they actually did. And they hope enough people forget about it. And then what they do is like, I don't understand why Doug blocked me. It had nothing to do with the fact that you lied about me or Tim or Mark or Iconic Comics many, many times over the course of years. It has nothing to do with the fact that you sat on streams while people were trying to tear us down and you were just like, I'm goofy. You just accepted, you just sat there and laughed and giggled and smiled, and while lies were disseminated about us. So yeah, that's why you're blocked. And so here's the thing. So what these people will be like, I don't understand why the Iconic Comics guys hold grudges. Can't you forgive? You're a Catholic, Doug. Can't you forgive? Oh, I can forgive. And I've forgiven a lot of people, even people that for whatever bizarre reason didn't even ask for it. But in my heart, I forgave them. But forgiveness does not mean you get access to me again. And you definitely don't get access if you don't bring closure to the situation. You don't take accountability for your behavior. You don't take responsibility for what you've said. You don't get to just wipe the internet of the evidence, pretend you didn't do it, and then say, I don't understand why these people hold grudges against me. No one's holding a grudge against you. You need to own up to your behavior. And if you own up to your behavior and you say, I made a mistake, or you said, I lied about people because I thought and I was thinking short-term interest over long-term relationships. I burned bridges because I too did not have principles. Well, then maybe we can talk about things if you own up to your behavior. But until you do that, we can't really be having conversations, because I'm not about getting burned again and again and again by people that showed that they are little snakes and scorpions and little critters that are out to bite you, little ticks on the digital landscape that'll try to give you Lyme disease or whatever other weird alert allergies to meat or whatever. So yeah, so the moral of the story is if you screw up, or if you, not a screw up, if you actively try to hurt somebody and you regret it, you probably should own up to it and let people know, hey, this is what I did. I was wrong. And I'm seeking forgiveness, and show through your actions that you actually have a contrite heart. Because until you do that, sorry, bro, nobody wants anything to do with you. Indeed, nobody wants to deal with ticks. Yeah. So yeah. Stay away from me, ticks. All right. So let's see what else. The only other thing, some of you might not be into this. Speaking of readers, another reader was telling me the other day that he was wondering why I've been posting more financial things. One reason is because I care about the long-term financial well-being of my readers and those who support Iconic Comics. So if you see me posting financial things, it's because I care about you guys. And it's not because I care about you for your own sake. There's a lot of financial stuff that's storms that are just over the horizon. And I need you to be aware of what is happening, because if you're not, you're going to be in a world of hurt. There's a lot of pain that will be coming your way. There's pain that's going to be coming everybody's way, but you can actually prepare for it. And that's what I want for you. So months ago, going back to the start of the year even, I was telling people, I probably have it. Here we go. Back in the day, when was this? This is just one from July. I told y'all months ago to prepare and stack those deflationary assets. Things are about to get wild. All right, so that was in July, right? Fast forward to December. This is just a couple days ago. Silver surpasses Apple to become the third largest asset in the world by market cap, breaking gold reaches new all-time high of $4,500. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of volatility as of late, but the fact remains. I even had some, like a creator, ask me what these tweets were about. I was like, hey, again, I'm paraphrasing. Are you saying that I should invest in precious metals? And I said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. I'm not going to tell you what precious metals, but precious metals, the right cryptocurrencies, deflationary assets. So yeah, when you know the historical patterns about what happens when governments, your own government and governments around the world keep printing money out of thin air, little fiat currencies, when they keep when the US keeps devaluing the dollar with inflationary policies, how do you hedge against inflationary policies? You do it with deflationary assets, and you trust that on a long enough timeline, if you have access, if you have exposure to those particular assets, you will be in a good place, because at some point in time, it all comes to a head. The rubber meets the road. The accounting games can't be played anymore. They will play the accounting games as long as humanly possible, but in a system where it's inflationary policies on steroids, you want to have deflationary assets, and you want to think about that sort of stuff. And that is exactly what happened. So if you bought silver and gold in July, or even earlier when I was talking about deflationary assets, and you sold the other day, you would have been selling at an insane profit, and you would have been going into 2026 like Scrooge McDuck, swimming in his little safe filled with gold coins and stuff like that. So that's what have happened. If you were in crypto, I actually like crypto a lot. Again, I don't tell people what to invest in. Crypto obviously is down currently, but again, if you investigate the underlying, the undercurrents, financial undercurrents of what is going on, and you listen to what billionaires, literal billionaires, and people that head up giant banks and giant corporations and politicians and their sons, like the Trump family, you can see exactly what is happening. You can see what is going to happen 6 months from now. You can see what's going to happen a year from now. You just have to do your homework, and you have to have the courage of your convictions to hold on to it. If you do your homework and you got the right answer in terms of gold or silver or whatever the heck it is, platinum, copper, whatever you're into, if your thesis is correct, if your premise is correct, and you have patience to wait it out, all of these other up and down volatility, all this junk going on, eventually your day in the sun will come. You will see it. But you have to be willing to endure the pain. You have to be willing to have people think that you're an insane person. I can tell you from personal experience that when you tell people about crypto, they will look at you oftentimes like you are an insane person. They will be like, wow, Doug's on the verge of being a homeless guy. He is like, he's got tinfoil on his head, and he's connecting dots in a shed out back somewhere. And I don't know about that guy. But again, there's the digital paper trail of the things that I said. If you would have listened to me in early 2025 about the deflationary assets, gold and silver and crypto, gold and silver in particular, dude, you would have been doing quite well. And if you were a creator who relies on crowdfunding, you wouldn't be relying on crowdfunding right now. If you took profits on silver the other day, a little bit, you don't want to get greedy. You don't want to get too greedy, but you have to, going back to Kenny Rogers, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and all that sort of stuff. So let's see, student of God, best time to buy is on the worst days. Yes. So that's the thing. Actually, there's a creator that I texted this morning, and I basically said as such, I said, my 2025 was spent on all of the worst days accumulating the assets that I believe in. When everybody else was pulling their hair out, I don't really have any hair anymore. I'm going bald. But when everybody else was pulling their hair out or their beard hair out or whatever, and everyone was crying and they thought the world was ending, I was like, you know what? I'm buying the thing that I believe in because it's dirt cheap right now. So I'm going to just keep buying that thing that nobody else believes in, and people say I'm a crazy person for, because I believe in it. And I don't even care if it takes 5 years or 10 years. But if I'm right, and I believe that I am right, then it'll be very interesting. I can tell you that I will be. I got a promise with God. I made a promise with God. So I kind of talked about this before, but I was so mad after the Hollywood junk with Soul Finder. I was so close. I did all the right things, dealing with these writers and producers that were going around to studios and telling large studios that they saw Soul Finder as another Jack Ryan type franchise potential, all this sort of stuff. And they wanted budgets for movies that were X number of dollars. And then when you look and you look at the all the movies with Jack Ryan going back to Hunt for Red October, and then you account for inflation with the movie budgets that they wanted, and then you look at what a standard, a fair contract would be for a writer, a creator for that property. They wanted to completely exploit me and give me absolutely nothing. They just wanted me to essentially hand over the rights to Soul Finder to them, all of them, everything, so that I would have to essentially ask permission if I wanted to make a Soul Finder rosary from, Universal or whatever, or Paramount or Netflix or whoever it was. I wouldn't even be able to make my own Soul Finder rosaries anymore. I would need permission for that. They wanted me to just be so grateful that they wanted to make TV show or a movie out of it, that I would just give it to them and just be like, oh, wow, you guys want the thing that I created. Here it is for free. Oh, you're letting me do my comic books. And they're like, you should be basically, they were like, you should be grateful because if a movie's made out of it, then you'll actually have more comic book sales, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, first of all, that's not as great as you make it out. There's plenty of movies that have absolutely negligible effects on the actual sale of comic books. People that like comic books buy comic books. You might get a little bump here or there or whatever, but the fact, you shouldn't just basically piss all over me and be like, hey, it's a hot day. You should be happy that there's a liquid that's landing on your head or something like that. Just drink it. You should be grateful. And so I was so mad that that's what they wanted to do to me. And I was dealing with my IP lawyer, who is awesome, who actually sent me a Christmas present this year. It was very, very, very kind of her. And very kind of the creator, you know who you were, who put me in touch with my lawyer now. But I digress. Anyway, I was so mad at how all of that unfolded and turned out in Hollywood, essentially trying to exploit me, that I was like, no, I gotta be able to completely unshackle myself from these financial constraints. I need to be able to make my own movie if I want to make my own movie, live action or animated. I gotta be able to basically have what Scott Adams says is FU money to these guys. So I'm like, that sounds insane. Again, I sound like an insane person. So I was like, I basically went to God and I was like, God, I'm not going to tell you everything I said to God, but I was like, if anyone could do it, it's you. You can do it. And if you do it, if you give me the blueprint for doing this, I will do it. And if it actually happens, I will give you all the glory. And I will tell everybody I came to you and I made a deal with you and you did it. You alone did it. I just was going through the motions with the plan that you gave me. And then through a whole sort of strange circumstances, I would say miraculous, there was a stranger that came to me and he started asking me about the Cairo. And then he started asking me about Christ. And then I told him all this stuff. And then ultimately I ended up giving him a free copy of Tunnel Hounds. And I gave him a free Cairo patch. And then he was like, hey, you did a lot of really nice things for me. And I want to do something nice for you. And then he told me something. And I immediately knew that this guy who I was never really supposed to meet unless a whole bunch of crazy, miraculous circumstances unfolded in a very specific way, who asked me about Jesus Christ in the Cairo, who then was grateful for my generosity and my charity towards him. He gave me the blueprint for doing the thing that I asked God for and Our Lady. And I knew immediately that this was it. And then I started researching it. And I was trying to be like, am I deceiving myself? Am I a victim of my self-deception? Because everything appears to be the case. This is it. And then I was like, all right, I need all of these Tetris blocks to fall into place over the course of 2025 for this to be taking shape. And so every single Tetris block of 2025 that I needed to fall into place, a miraculous set of circumstances that people said you would be crazy to believe these things, that these blocks would fall into place. Every single one fell into place. A 5-year plan that I had, a 5-year blueprint, they all fell into place. So we'll see. So it appears that I had a miraculous 2025 after praying to God for a miracle, and the stage is set. So I'm telling you all this now that it's really on me. I'm the only person that can screw it up at this point in time by falling out of a state of grace or just doing stupid stuff. But it's a 5-year plan. The first year is in the books, and it was 100% successful in terms of all the things I needed to happen for the first year. So there we go. 20% down, 80% to go. We'll see how 2026 goes. But if all goes according to plan, God's plan, I will be able to essentially do anything that I want financially with Soul Finder, and Iconic Comics will benefit greatly. So anyway, there's a few people that are watching here, and so now you know that there's the digital paper trail, my prayer paper trail of what I have been up to. I am exhausted. I spent literally every single day, almost every single day of 2025 doing deep financial dives into global markets and then investing accordingly. And so we'll just put it that way. But yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. I'll keep you updated. 2025 was awesome. And 2026, I can't wait. I will keep you updated. Anyway, that's about it for now. Long story short, we talked about the Somali daycare center, the Phantom Daycare Centers. We talked about the U.S. culture and what a bunch of corrupt people are doing to try and eat it out from within, like termites, to destroy the United States of America while simultaneously gaslighting you and pretending like they're actually American patriots when they're not. They actually hate the United States, but they need you to believe otherwise. And they just want to rule over the rubble of the United States when they destroy it. But hopefully there's enough people that are out there who will stand up to this madness. And we talked about Soul Finder, and we talked about my pact with God. And 2025, I spent again almost every day. When I was in Japan, I was still doing the same thing when we got done. But for whatever reason, the buying crypto and stuff like that I was trying to buy, they wouldn't let me when I was in Japan. So they were like, oh, it's not available in where you are. So it probably got all screwed up with my cell phone because they think I'm in the United States and you could do stuff here that you can't do when you're in Japan. So I was prevented from doing what I wanted in Japan, but it was probably a blessing in disguise. Japan was awesome, and hopefully I'll go back in 2026. We'll see. Let's see, Neostar. Student of God. Let's see. Let's scroll up real quick. See what Student of God has to say. Talking about what he bought recently. Had good news with a big deal. So they did a share offering and dropped pretty big, and I bought in. It's been flat. All right. So Student of God has his crypto that he's all about. Everybody's got their crypto. It's all going to play out the way. First of all, if you're invested in anything that has real world utility to it and solves problems on a global scale, you're probably going to do pretty well over the long haul. If you're not involved in goofy meme coins and all that sort of stuff. So like years ago, there were people that were trying to, stock. Yeah, I'm more into crypto. I don't really get into too much of the stocks, but I like, well, I shouldn't say that. I have traditional like IRAs and things like that for like long-term long-term retirements. Yeah, I don't even know what was let me scroll back up. Sorry. SYM. What is SYM's ticker? What's the company? I don't know what the company is off the top of my head. Anyway, Student of God has his company or whatever he's invested in. And I got my crypto. So everyone's got their thing. But the point is, if you do your homework and you know what you're invested in, and it actually solves real world problems on a global scale, you're probably going to do fine over the long haul, as I just said. Neostar Productions. I might have to build my funds a bit before I give that a shot. I definitely plan to do some investments after I save a bit. He says, I've always operated on the mindset that if Hollywood wanted something like Reiserman, they would have already made it. A prayer paper trail. I have to give that a shot. Here's a profitable 2026, Doug. More power to you. Common America says, man, Mark Levin really doesn't like you. It's called Symbiotic. Oh, I'll have to look into that. I don't know. I don't know I don't know if it's like an AI company or something like that. I guess I could probably look it up here and see what comes up. Yeah, Mark Levin, I know he's not a big rosary guy. So let's see what comes up. Symbiotic. Let's see what we got here. There better not be Symbiotic Incorporated. Beep, boop, 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 boop. The map isn't geography. Symbiotic's reach now spans multiple contexts, reflecting growing adoption of modular, reusable security infrastructure. That sounds very promising there, Student of God. There you go, Symbiotic. Anytime you're doing stuff with security, the infrastructure and the plumbing of things, that's actually a really good bet. A lot of times the infrastructure and the plumbing of various systems is boring to the vast majority of people, but actually a lot of times boring can be very lucrative. So yeah, they got a Walmart deal and a new Trump deal. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So you had the Trump administration literally saying that they were going to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. And then you had Trump's family were literally creating Bitcoin farms down in Texas. And you have all these people that are putting hundreds of millions and billions into Bitcoin treasuries and stuff like that. I personally, I shouldn't say don't. Bitcoin is ridiculous to me on multiple levels. But if the world wants to play the Bitcoin game and call it a store of value and digital gold and all of that, and the most powerful people in the world all agree that that's what it's going to be to them, then you probably should take it seriously and you should probably consider it, at least consider it. Me personally, I'm not a Bitcoin guy. I look for technology that, again, solves real world problems and actually has utility to it. And it's solving problems that need to be solved. So in my mind, Bitcoin does not do that. It's just sort of sits there and you either like create, it's like a vase or a suitcase, a digital suitcase where people are like, it's valuable because it holds value or whatever. So whatever. But anyway, it sounds like your symbiotic or whatever it is, if this showed up correctly for me, sounds promising. So I don't know, but I haven't done my own homework, so I need to do that. So I will do that. But anyway, let's see. Oh yeah, Come in America. Man, Mark Levin really doesn't like you. Yeah, Mark Levin is calls the rosary, people that pray the rosary, crackpots. Now, I will tell you this, that I actually have family that consider me a religious crackpot. I have family that considers me a religious extremist. Why? Because I actually believe angels and demons exist and they are real. And I believe that the demonic actually influences people. And I pray the rosary, and I believe in the power of the Holy Rosary, the gospel on beads. And I talk to God on a daily basis, and I pray to God, and I make pacts with God. And hey, you know what's really crazy, Mark Levin? Hey, do you know what's really crazy, Ernst family people that think that I'm a religious extremist and a crackpot? That I have prayed to God my entire life, and literally every single important prayer in my life, the ones that I have gone to God with the depths of my heart, has been answered. And they've often been answered in the affirmative. But let me tell you something very interesting. When I was a young man, I used to pray to God for stuff, and I really believed certain things in the depths of my heart. But my prayers were selfish prayers. And God actually answered my prayers in the affirmative. God actually gave me the exact thing that I prayed for that was selfish. Why? Because after I got the thing that I prayed for, it left me empty. And I realized over time, after having enough prayers answered by God for selfish things, that they were in fact selfish, and they didn't fulfill me. They didn't fill the hole in my heart. And I just went to the next thing to try and fill the hole. And I prayed for that and I got it. And it didn't answer my prayer. And I went to the next thing and I prayed for it and I got it. And these were often very big asks, getting into various schools, getting various jobs, getting certain professional accomplishments that would bring notoriety or traffic or whatever, to money or X, Y, and Z to me. But in time, I realized that God was giving me the things that I asked for, so I would ultimately, if my mind was open to it, if I was open to the Holy Spirit, that I would realize that I was asking for things that were hollow and empty and devoid of any true value. And so then I realized I was a selfish, bad, self-absorbed human being on track for sure for hell. So now, then I started to pray for things. I prayed for what God wanted for my life. And I said, God, I think this is what you want. Can you give me this particular thing? If it is your will, then you can make it so. And my prayers were answered again and again and again and again. So to Mark Levin and to any family members out there that may be stalking my social media feeds or my streams, who call me a crackpot and a religious nutcase and all this sort of stuff, I just want you to know that God has always answered my prayers to teach me lessons. Yeah, so you can look at my life and you can look at your life, rejecting God and calling people like me crackpots, and you can compare the two. And hopefully you have an open mind about this thing. So now I'm going into some, like, obviously like family stuff or whatever. But the point is, if you actually said Merry Christmas to me and you meant it, just know that on many levels, you're actually closer to me than some of my own family, who actually want nothing to do with me because I believe angels and demons are real, because I believe Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins, because I pray the rosary, and then I pray for people, both who like me and who hate me. And I don't know where I'm going to ultimately end up, but I know that years ago, I was on the road, the highway to hell, for sure. And now I'm trying to not be on that road. I'm trying to be on the highway to heaven. So speaking of old television shows or whatever. But I digressed. Anyway, the rosary. Mark Levin, you probably should consider praying the rosary. Because the rosary changed my life. So, and actually, if you go to one of my old blog posts, I actually have a little story about the rosary where I was praying it many years ago. And one of the ornaments on our Christmas tree started vibrating at a crazy speed. It was going back and forth, and it was like shaking all around. And at first I didn't know what was going on. I was just praying, and I just heard this noise that sounded like, and then I was like looking around, and I was like, what the heck? What is that? And I looked, and I saw that there was an ornament on the tree that was just violently shaking for like 3 seconds. And then it just stopped. Boom, instantly. Like some sort of like gravitron thing, like took control of it and just stopped. And you're like, well, what does that mean, Doug? I don't know what that means. I don't exactly know what it means either, but I know that it definitely strengthened my faith. I know that it made me be like, you know what? I better keep praying the rosary because I don't feel anything. I'm not scared of whatever just happened here at all. And I know something supernatural just happened. And I know that I'm not on drugs. I know that I don't drink. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't suffer from hallucinations or anything like that. I'm just a guy alone on his couch next to a Christmas tree praying a rosary. And the ornament on the tree just started shaking, like it was like the flash was invisible and shaking it violently for like probably like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 seconds or something like that ultimately. So anyway, yeah. I guess that's about it. So a little supernatural story and little family details for you. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and I hope you all have a Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in to this stream. We've been going for about 1 hour and 20 minutes. I'll try and get back sooner rather than later. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it, and I will see you later. See ya.